Hey guys, you're watching carbuyer.com.sg once again, and today we're looking at the Skoda Octavia 1.4. We're going to do a short review on it in the form of a 3 things to know video story. So the first thing to know about the Skoda Octavia is that it's not actually new. It was launched with the brand's return to Singapore early 2018, and 2018 coincidentally by the end of it was Skoda's best year ever in terms of sales in Singapore. So the brand is pretty successful upon its return. So the Octavia actually launched back then as a 1.0 litre model. That is the 1.0 litre inline 3-cylinder engine we see in the Polo. And it's actually switched a year on from the launch in about 2019 to the inline 4-cylinder turbocharged 1.4, which we see in other Volkswagen Group models such as the Volkswagen Golf. So what was the reason for the change? Well, Skoda tells us it's that customers here actually thought, a 1.0 litre engine in a car of this size. This is a small mid-mainstream sedan, in the same category as say a Honda Civic. So people weren't quite convinced of the 1.0, which is what they associate more with a compact engine. But as we'll see, the 1.0 wasn't that much of a problem, but the 1.4 is in fact quite an interesting and welcome step up. And usually when you go from that engine size, bigger engine size, it costs more because of COE category. So Cat A is cheaper than Cat B usually in the past, but now there is almost no difference between the two. And despite this car, the 1.4, having 150 horsepower and being a Cat B car, the price hasn't changed that much. I'm taking COE into account. Because of that, also it's cheaper than it was at launch in 2018. It used to be about 110 grand. Now this car, the 1.4, is actually 95 grand and a bit. What we need to compare with is actually the closest Volkswagen model. That used to be the sedan, which was the Jetta, but the Jetta isn't made in right-hand drive anymore. So we're comparing it to the Volkswagen Golf, and I'll let you have a look at the prices right here. So you can see that obviously the Octavia is in the right price point. It's cheaper than the Golf. It's a sedan, it's large, it's more spacious. But what exactly do you get in the Octavia or in a Skoda that you don't get in the Volkswagen and vice versa? This is point 2. We're going to look at the interior features of the car and compare. Okay, so the value proposition of Skoda, and it's been very successful in Europe and other parts of the world so far, is that you get Volkswagen Group tech, but without a Volkswagen price. Now, of course, Skoda is owned by the Volkswagen Group, along with a lot of other brands, Audi, Bugatti, Lamborghini, blah, blah, blah. But Skoda is kind of the value champion when it comes to the group, and this bears out in the Octavia, which we see here. So the pluses of the Octavia right here. Let's look at this. This is an 8-inch infotainment screen, what Skoda calls the Columbus system. Just fiddle through it for you. So that's full color touchscreen. To compare that to the entry-level Golf Comfort line, which is more expensive, the Golf gets a smaller 6.5-inch screen. And also, it doesn't have other features as well. That's a very basic setup for a Volkswagen. Okay, you also have things like dual-zone air conditioning. How do I look at that? Dual-zone air conditioning. Yeah, we have app connectivity as well. You have Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and MirrorLink. Haven't connected it because I don't have a USB cable with me. Also, in terms of safety, you get assist systems. So there we have blind spot monitor and rear traffic alert. As we always say, very, very useful to have that. And as we mentioned, you don't get these things in the comparable price level of Golf. Who is Averick? Hi, Averick. Just turn it off. So you're thinking there has to be a drawback somewhere. Volkswagen Group tech, DSG, turbocharged engines, blah, 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 all that stuff, but at a smaller price tag. What gives? So in this particular case with the Octavia, it has no drive modes. So let's look down here. This part is totally blank. There's start, stop, but there are no drive modes. And on the, for example, the more expensive Octavia 245 RS, this car menu, you have a drive mode, eco and all that. So there's no coasting, there's no eco mode either, which is why this car will be a little bit more thirsty than the equivalent Golf with the same engine. I'm not sure if I can find, let me have a look. Driving data. Yeah, that's terrible because I've gone very short distance and I've been filming. But you would probably get around 7 or 6.5. The Golf will probably do less than 6.5 on a normal day. So that is a technology difference, but also in presentation, the Skoda isn't as nice. I would say it's about 85% there. Now look at this. This is the classic dual color screen. It's like an LCD screen. You know, it's very clear, but you know, it's not very sharp. It's very clear, but it's not very slick compared to the active instrument display on the new Golf as well. So look at these. These are not particularly nice. They're basic, okay, decent, but not super. And you look at things like this. This is how Skoda saves money. This feels okay, but all this plastic is one piece, so it saves you from having two buttons. That's how they save cost. Here as well in the Golf, this is actually a recessed handle. This handle just sticks out into oblivion. Blah. It's not terrible. This is a bit more plasticky. You hear it. It's not terrible, but you know, there's a difference there in cost, and it doesn't feel quite as nice as the Golf. Also, you won't see much of the super nice trim here. So this is all hard plastic. There's some black gloss plastic here, but that's a rarity. So all these little trim differences are where Skoda makes up the difference as well. All right, and our third point is there is no longer a Jetta, but who cares? So very clearly, I think the Skoda Octavia is the kind of spiritual heir to the Volkswagen Jetta, because you can't buy a Volkswagen sedan in this segment anymore. But you have a Skoda Octavia instead. So as we've seen, infotainment system, active safety, nice little touches that, you know, the Jetta back then didn't have at all. This is nicer than a Jetta, honestly speaking. Okay, and it also has one advantage over that car as well. And not to mention other sedans in the mainstream sedan segment, it has a fastback boot with a very, very large 590 litre boot. You can flip the seats down, you get 1,580 litres. Now that is really useful and a lot better than a sedan for loading up big things like bicycles, you know, cabinets, whatever. It is really big, very useful. Now the drawbacks we've covered in the previous point as well, but also the driving experience is pretty good as well. The 1.4 litre engine, 150 horsepower, has more power than most of the other cars in the mainstream segment. They're all Cat A, so they're all less than 130 horsepower. Cars like the Toyota Corolla Altis and the Kia Cerato. So in drive terms, I would say that the Octavia is somewhere like 80%, 85% of a Golf. It's pretty much there, very close. It's not as quiet. It's a little bit less well damped, so when you go over the bumps, you can feel the reverberations come to the cabin a bit more. Obviously, they use less sound insulation in this car, not as refined. It's a bit obvious, but it's not like in your face obvious, yeah, we've been cutting costs everywhere. And again, you look at the price point, you look at what you get for the price point as well. The Octavia is pretty impressive. And also, it has 150 horsepower, so it's pretty quick. It's also quite fun to drive around corners. There's directness to it as well. So, you know, all in all, that is one of the reasons why we rated the Octavia one of the best mainstream sedans in Singapore. We have that story up on carbuyer.com.sg, and we rated it one of the best along with the Toyota Corolla Altis and the Mazda 3. You can click the description and find out more about that. Well worth a read, please check it out. Okay guys, we've come to the end of our 3-point review of the Skoda Octavia 1.4. If you enjoyed this video and found it useful, please subscribe to carbuyer.com.sg. Please check out the website for more details, news and reviews on motoring in Singapore. We'll catch you next time.